The following video is sponsored by thehangingbook.com. That, as you can see in this video, so the originality of this type of book, that you can see the contents in the website, not only the reading contents but the picture contents. So the point of this type of books is that they are served with this type of frame holder, frame folder, and with the holes behind. So once you have introduced the book by the side of the pictures, like 12, 10, 15 pictures in each book, about Catalonia, Wien, the Modernisme, the Art Nouveau in Catalonia. So you put it inside, and whether horizontal or vertical, and then you hang it on the wall of your home or the office. So here it goes, the video on the Plaça Espanya and the exhibition of 29. Well, so as you can see, this video is dedicated to the premises of Plaça Espanya, where we are focusing from here. That's from the roof of one also of most monumental buildings in Barcelona, an ex-Bull Ring, a very brilliant building by Richard Rogers on a previously historicist building. Well, so from here you have an all commanding view, not only of Plaza España, but then between these towers begins the Maria Cristina Avenue. That is the main axe of what was in 1929 an international exhibition. That was the moment that Barcelona already was urbanizing this area, the new town, this very well structured grill or chessboard of streets of Barcelona, quite ample. That is why it has the name of enlargement or eixample, that means the widening, not really enlargement, but to widen the streets. So the new town. So by these 20s or 1915, even before, when they really wanted to make a wall exhibition, but actually they couldn't do it until 1929. So by then Barcelona was swallowing the ex-villages that were turned into neighborhoods that were at the outskirts of Barcelona. Like one village that was from where we can see here from to the right. And nowadays, well, it's one of the main axes of Barcelona, Gran Via, and that would be the direction to the south, to the airport, and then farther south to Tarragona, Tortosa, Valencia. Well, now we'll go down to the street level to see from closer this set of buildings that they were done in a clear Mediterranean classical look. So on the one hand, we can see here, the left-hand side, the center of the square, this fountain now is not working the water, but it's really a fountain, and it has these mighty columns in each of the vertex. The plant of the building is like a triangle, but with the sides slightly concave, you can see, and then it arises on a pool that encircles the main lifted building, a monument, that it has this shape like a kind of oval intersected by a rectangle, a typical shape of the Baroque. And actually, you can see the columns. They have this capital with this acanthus leaf, a typical element of the Corinthian order of the times of the Greeks and later the Romans. Then on the capitals, it's placed the architrave and then the upper frieze, altogether the entablature with this kind of so-called denticulum or teeth that they are like corbels that support the roof, where in the middle there is this kind of chalice that at night sometimes when it's working the water also it's a fire. So altogether these references to the Roman times, actually in some parts of the building or the bottom, this kind of little garden, it's there given so Senatus Populus Roma, and you can see also these touches of ancient architecture as on the bottom where they are coming out these sculptures. You can see these stones that they have like this relief. That was also a resource quite typical from the Baroque. In the columns also they have some kind of mm, blanket or, or toga that is embracing them, creating a kind of a spiral. And that will be the movement, this helix movement of the Baroque, the Salmonic column. So altogether would be like a kind of Fontana, Neo Fontana de Trevi. That was one of the main sources of inspiration to make this set of buildings in 29. So for the time really was quite an old-fashioned architecture. Like now we will approach to these left towers that they are a clear copy of the campaniles from Venice. So neo or new Renaissance, remember Baroque, 17th, 18th century, Renaissance, 15th century, 16. But here they were making this fountain and these towers. We are in the 20s of the 200th century. And in these times, in Germany already was developed the Bauhaus school, also in France. So it was Le Corbusier, the leading figure of also the modern architecture in New York, Chicago, already for decades, they were building quite big skyscrapers. So that was really quite an old-fashioned aesthetic. But as you will see, so it was done in a very monumental way. And as they were visitors, or they were expecting visitors, they were also building some hotels. The building in front of us, a bit to the left, that's the only hotel built then that remained. The rest they were demolished. But actually, this modern hotel, where there is the clock, Plaça, it was built inspired in the old hotel. That was built with this also old-fashioned um, aesthetic, especially in the corners. This kind of um, stone blocks that they frame the rest of the building. That is more neat, kind of more minimalist, but also with the use and showing of the brick show some kind of old-fashioned look. So yeah, it was celebrate an exhibition, and it was given the job already for some years before to urbanize the area and also to design some of the buildings to Pucci Calfao, one the great figures of the movement so-called modernismo that actually, as you will see in a few minutes as we start walking in between these towers, it was made like system of terraces, like 3 levels, and slowly reaching the feet of the mountains. Well, this close up give us also a clear view of this idea of classicism that also here was considered was fitting and was a good way to embellish Barcelona, not only because in the times it still was quite prestigious, this type of architecture. Remember this great monument, all with white marble in the middle of the ancient Rome, dedicated to Vittorio Emanuele, the king of the reunified Italy. That then was one of the scenarios of the fascist Italy with Mussolini. That also it's a clear example of the new classicism here in Barcelona. So they were developing this trend. Even the Art Deco, that was so the modern style in the times, has some details of classicism, so much more purified. Here would be more like a copy of this Tuscan order. Remember these columns of the Romans that sometimes had no flattening, no vertical canneling. They were just like cylinders with a slight bell, the so-called entasis, and then on the top, so the capital is like the Doric order, and on the top the architrave, also with this kind of disc, or like in the Doric order that were also using the triglyph and the metope. And above on the roof there is these jars that would be an element more from the Manierism or the Baroque. On the corners also you can see these little obelisks that also they were used in the since the Roman times and then rediscovered and used again in the Renaissance. So now we'll get closer to these towers here on the bottom. This way to make the stones or the ashlars as they would be pillows. And altogether, a bit of a fake architecture because it's not really very noble marble or even stone. Inside sometimes is just made with brick, but then it was covered all kind of whitewash to pretend to be very elegant and expensive stone. The facade from this side and the other side, here by the way, you can see this expo ring called Las Arenas, the Sands, that it was mm, fully destroyed in the inside. The architect Richard Rogers and the local architect Balaguer, Alonso Balaguer, so they were preserving the facade, the external the external cylinder. It was on his feet was placed like a support of reinforced concrete that unloads the forces from the upper arches in this new Cordoba style, like a horseshoe from the Mosque of Cordoba, and then they unload in in the steel pillars that they are placed with the right inclination to unload in a proper way all the forces, and then inside they were placed like three metallic structure or four metallic structures, not whole cylindrical piece, so to leave a space like a kind of axe for the escalators and even for some very massive system of pillars, inclinated cylindrical pillars painted in yellow to support the very white dome. That is what you can see on the top. That is also like coming out to improve the view of the visitors that they are walking around the terrace, also inside our restaurants and exhibition rooms. So Barcelona got this very brilliant move building monument that is a shopping center and was already closed for decades. That was from 900s and a bit later when it was gone this historicism and modernism. That one of the points was the love for the applied arts, so combination of ceramic, brick, stone, building. That was gone already by 1920s, and in his place again came order, the classical order and seriosity of the Doric, the, the Corinthian, the Ionic. We have seen also that, yeah, the two wings they open like quarter of a circle, like the famous square of St. Peter in Rome, to create the square, at least in one of the halves of it. And inside, it's a lot of space. Remember that all this was built to make pavilions, big pavilions for the different machines, the industries, or the nations that they were showing their goods, or simply they wanted to show their architecture. And yeah, so we are talking about this classical look inspired in the great cultures of the Mediterranean that always they have historically they have represented themselves by this type of architecture initiated by the Greeks in their different ways. So all together here we can see, for example, these copies of the Venice Tower that is also one of the great cultures of the Mediterranean. It was built like three parts. The base slightly inclinated and built with stone to better support the forces from above. Then the main body of the building, built of brick, as you can see, they were only decorative. That's why no big windows because obviously there is nobody living there, no offices. Um, on the top of the brick structure, there are these round arches, and they develop until the bottom, creating like these three panels that at the same time they are torn into the so-called descents, kind of pilaster. You can see nowadays Barcelona, this problem of the unregulated immigration and this illegal street selling and forgery. And yeah, so and then on the top was placed kind of template as would be a Corinthian temple with seven columns, and then in the extremes, the antas, this kind of pillars. Here again, this front view, we can clearly see this look as as a triumphal arch. Remember in Rome or in Catalonia here, in near Tarragona, Arc de Barà basically was like two two walls or two quadratic pillars on the sides, united by an arch, and on the top also to create the roof and unite the two sides with the architrave and the tablature was a way to give a very signifying monumental entrance to somewhere or simply just to build this triumphal arch to commemorate something along the history, like in Innsbruck or Munich. They have been building or here in Barcelona in 1888 for another exhibition, world exhibition. It was built something like this, a triumphal arch, but very different from this one, because this one would be like pretending to be a copy, while the one of 1888, the beginning of the modernism, it only had the general form, but it was built with brick and with a series of terracottas and figures that makes it not a copy of the Roman triumphal arch. We're here, as you can see on the sides, this horizontal grooving that is also quite typical of the classical way to build or to pretend to build because it's really not stones. And at the sides of the arch above, you can see these two circles. That is also an element of the classical buildings. This side of the pavilion, on the top you can see it's a kind of stone balcony, a balustrade. That is also an element of the Renaissance. Not really Roman in the Roman times. Maybe somewhere they made it, but really to our days they haven't arrived as this way to make the roof with this stone balcony, the so-called balustrade. That is an element more of the Manieris and Baroque, so 16th, 17th century. And well, so normally, in many cases, so they create this total symmetry that also with the size of the elements, like the very height of these towers or the quite big size of the jars. It also was giving this look of importance and monumentality. Not all has been preserved. As you can see here on the side, the right hand side, these buildings that were built later, destroying the ones who were previously. And one of the things that they were one of the great, if not the great attraction of all the premises was not only the monumentality of the building, as also we can see here in front of us, the biggest building that closes the perspective, the National Palace, where there is the National Museum of Catalonia, that later will comment what embellish more the area and catch more the allure of the people was the so-called magic fountains. As here we can see these elements that is for the jets of water and for the light, because these fountains they are a light from beneath and color, because putting on the light on the bulb on the projector a colorful glass, so then the light colors the water and it comes from the very top where it begins with a waterfall and then in the middle there is a big fountain with different basins within different pools. And as you can see in this kind of stepway, the water flows down to our rear from this view where everything finished in this fountain we have seen at the beginning. That, by the way, it's a work of Josep Maria Jujol. And this architect, it was one of the most brilliant figures of the Modernism that actually he developed a career by himself as an architect after making one of the most surprising balconies and banks for Antoni Gaudí, these twisted scrap iron balconies like algae or leaves, or the ceramic break, so so modern for the time, as it would be kind of neo-impressionist. But in the case of this commission, he was making something quite old-fashioned, while parallelly he was developing a very brilliant career as an architect, already post-modernism. So Josep Maria Jujol, very interested. We will see if we can dedicate uh, a video to this great architect of Catalonia. So the magic fountains, they have been maintained and repaired several times. Their work of Boigas, an engineer of the times that was making many many works, many fountains, not only here but all over the world. He was the son of another Boigas that some 50 years ago, before he made the Columbus column, one also of the greatest iconic monuments of Barcelona. Well, here we can see that despite in many cases the architecture, facade architecture most of the time, because then the inside they were much more modern with steel pillars and very practical saloon spaces, but the facade was with these Greek columns and little obelisk jars that it was quite reactionary architecture, but in some cases they make very very modern things that they were in line with the most developed or modern architecture that it was done, for example, in Germany. Bruno Taut for the Werkbund was making by the 20s or even before the first geodesic dome that it was built, with a succession of concentric rings or with vertical nerves, like for example the outer look of Brunelleschi Dome in Florence, or the dome of Michelangelo in St. Peter, but he was making it like the architects who make this one in 29 or just before 25, 26 with triangles. And then triangles become rhombus and all together different geometric forms, and slowly, so they build the dome. By in all his sections, it's flat, but from the distance, it draws like a semicircular, not semicircular, semispheric space.